very warm welcome to our 10th Jubilee Jaina Studies workshop here at SOAS, where we celebrate with a conference on Jaina art and architecture, which promises to be highly stimulating, both intellectually and visually, of course. On behalf of the organizing team, I would like to welcome in particular the 17 speakers from Britain, France, Germany, India, Sweden and the United States, who accepted our invitation to offer presentations on the latest research in the study of Jaina art and architecture. Being the most visible and visually most attractive aspect of the rich Jaina heritage and a fitting theme for an anniversary conference such as ours. 9 years ago, when Jaina Studies was launched at SOAS, it seemed highly unlikely that a small academic field such as Jaina Studies could sustain an annual international conference. On top of the Jaina Studies panel at the 3 annual World Sanskrit Conferences and numerous local conferences without losing its impetus. Yet, the excitement and the wealth of good scholarship which our field continues to produce carries us from one year to the next. There's no end in sight yet, because the academic study of Jain history and culture is still in its infancy, and exciting new discoveries, as reported in the COJS newsletter, are made every year. Our annual conferences are decidedly collaborative events. They would not have been sustainable over a period of 10 years without the persistent interest and effort of all participants. On behalf of the Center of Jaina Studies at SOAS, I would like to thank everyone who has made a contribution in organizing and financing this year's anniversary conference. As always, we gratefully acknowledge the contribution of those speakers present among us tonight who made their own financial arrangements and of their supporting universities or private sponsors. For the 3rd time running, the Division of Indic Religions Center for Theology and Religious Studies at the University of Lund co-organizes and co-finances the Jaina Studies workshops through a personal research grant of its head, Professor Ole Kvartström, the person sitting next to me, as it were. Yes, I think that it deserves some applause. The collaboration between SOAS and Lund University in particular is one of the most viable and visible outcomes of the initiative for European cooperation in Jaina Studies, launched in 2004 here at SOAS, and can serve as a model for wider collaboration for the preservation of our small but significant field of study. I'm delighted that this year, for the first time, the Victoria and Albert Museum has joined us as a co-sponsor and co-host. The V&A hosts many world-famous treasures of Jaina art and Jain manuscripts. In 1996 rather, it co-organized an acclaimed exhibition on Jaina art from India. The program of this year's workshop was put together with the help of Nicholas Barnard, curator of the South and Southeast Asian collections at the V&A, who will later introduce the distinguished speaker of tonight's annual Jaina lecture. Nick is the 3rd person in line here. Shall we give him a applause as well? We hope that the local cooperation between SOAS and the V&A and other institutions in London with an interest in Jaina studies, such as the British Library, the British Museum and the Wellcome Institute, as well as Jain community organizations such as the Institute of Jainology, Jain Spirit and the Jaina Academy, which have sponsored COJS student prizes and scholarships, and an invited lecture over the years will also continue. This conference would not have been possible without small and large private donations. Unfortunately, all donors preferred their names not to be mentioned in the time-honored Jain virtue of Maun Seva, or silent service. I think we should still give them also a little bit of The annual Jain workshop is free for all. However, we welcome voluntary contributions, and it is my duty to point you to the large pink carton at the entrance of this hall, our donation box, and to our website, which contains information for sponsors. Finally, although eternally threatened by extinction, Jaina Studies continues to thrive, as the following selection of this year's spring harvest of publications will demonstrate. First of all, in your hands you have the third volume of Jaina Studies, the newsletter for the Center of Jaina Studies. The co-editor, Janet Foster, has flown in from San Francisco, is with us tonight, and again, I think we should compliment her. Where are you, Janet? There she is. I think without her this newsletter wouldn't exist. One has to mention this. I should also mention Jane Savory, who actually organizes the entire conference with her team, and helping me here and sitting next to me. Let us have a final applause for her. Could you help me with the next slide, please, Jane? The second item of Spring Harvest I have here in my hands is the print edition of the online journal, the online International Journal of Jaina Studies, which is now called International Journal for Jaina Studies Online, because the pagination is slightly different. So if any librarian is interested in that, please write to Hindi Grant Kayale in Mumbai. Everything is on the web. The second notable publication is the latest issue of the Berliner Indologische Studien. And again, we have a co-editor amongst us, Gerd Mewisen, who will present a paper tomorrow. And maybe, Gerd, you can make yourself known as well. This journal is one of the main outlets for Jain studies, as everyone in the field knows. And the last issue is a special issue, I think one can say that, except two publications on Jain Ahimsa, with notable contributions by Colette Caillard and Joseph Deleu and others. Last but not least, there is the volume Jaina Studies, edited by Colette Caillard and Nalini Balbir, Papers of the 12th World Sanskrit Conference, Volume 9, which just appeared with Motilal Banarsidass in Delhi. And Nalini is also amongst us. She's sitting there. A good speech is a short speech, and I've taken a lot of time already, so I will pass on to Ole Kvarnström, who will guide you through the rest of the program. Thank you very much.